Welcome to deploying Office 2013 using Config Manager 2012 SP1. In this lesson, I'm going to tell you first kind of what we assume, because I'm not going to start out with installation of Config Manager. Everything's installed, everything's functioning properly. What I will start out with is the deployment process, and I'll show you step by step how to create a package that contains Office 2013 within Config Manager and deploy it to our clients. The deployment process. First of all, we have something called a site server. That's the machine we installed Config Manager on. And then we have a bunch of clients down here. But there are some other site systems that you should be aware of. There is the server that's running our SQL database for Config Manager. That guy's called the Site Database Server. We also have management points and distribution points. These are the two, management and distribution, that talk to your clients. Every once in a while, based on settings your Config Manager administrator has set up, they'll check in with the management point to see if there's any work to be done. If the instruction is to install software, the client then connects to your distribution point in order to either run the setup program from there or download from there and run it locally, however you choose to configure it. But the main point to remember here is the management point and the distribution point. Those are the two Config Manager site systems that talk most often to the client, so they should be closest to the client. Now what we're going to do is create an Office package that has all of the source files needed to install Office. We do this on the site server. Then that package, when we distribute it, is sent out to all of our distribution points. We only have one here, but in a large environment, you might have 20, 30, 40, 100 different distribution points. So you do need to take into account a product as big as Office, the number of distribution points you have, and whether you really should update all distribution points at one time or not. Next, we create a deployment. In the past, we used to call these advertisements, and they will contain a command line. Ours is setup.exe for our deployment, telling it what to run. The clients then check in with the management point, see that they have work to do, and connect to the distribution point and download Office to each one of the client machines. What we need to do within Config Manager is add Office 2013 as a package or an application. Well, what's the difference between a package and an application? In the previous versions of Configuration Manager, all we had were packages. Applications are brand new with Config Manager 2012. A package is what we're used to. Applications, what's cool about them? They can be state-based. It's one of my favorite new CM features. State-based simply means if I set up an application to always be on a machine, at that timing interval, when the clients check in with the management point to see if there's any work to be done, it will also get a list of what's supposed to be installed on that machine. If there's something missing, he'll connect to the distribution point and download it again. So if users are removing software, then it's going to be put back time and time and time again. But what happens if they're not removing it? They're adding software to their machines, and you don't want them to add software. You can also set up applications to be state-based, to never be installed on your client machines. Then, when that timing interval occurs and the clients go check in with the management point, they can get a list of applications that are not supposed to be there. Then, those applications will be removed. Whether it's a package or an application, they're both going to run from the client. And it's going to look like this. On our Configuration Manager server, we will first open a good old command prompt, and we need to get our MSP file ready for deployment through Config Manager. So I'm going to go to the E drive, change directories into Office 2013. From there, go into the x86 folder. And let's just make sure before we try to open it that the admin folder is there, so we should be able to open the Office customization tool by doing a setup with the /admin switch. When OCT launches, we are going to choose to create a new setup customization file, and it is Pro Plus. All good so far. Click OK. On the install location and organization name, Let's input our Globomantics, Inc. And under Licensing and User Interface, we will choose to use KMS key, accept the license terms. The display level is going to be set to None. Suppress Model and No Cancel will be selected. Next is Modify Setup Properties. We will add, and the value that we want to add is going to be setup underscore reboot, and the value we're going to set it to is never reboot. Tell it OK. To disable that Microsoft welcome screen, we're going to go to the Modify User Settings, and we'll expand Microsoft Office 2013, and we'll expand Privacy and highlight Trust Center. Disable Opt-in Wizard on first run. Go ahead and double-click on that guy. Choose Enabled and click OK. That's all we need to do to get Office 2013 to run silently for Config Manager. Now we can close down good old OCT, and yes, we do want to save those changes. In fact, I'm going to put this on the desktop for now, and we're going to save it as CM silentinstall.msp. We'll open Windows Explorer, and I need to make sure that MSP file is in the correct place. So for Office 2013, x86, Updates folder, that's where I need to put it. So I can click on the desktop and bring that guy right in. There's my CM silentinstall.msp. Customization is done. Next, we'll need to open Configuration Manager. And the workspace that we need to go to is the software library. So bottom left corner, that's the list of your workspaces. Let's go right into Software Library. From there, we want to go into Application Management and highlight Applications. By default, we don't have any applications. So first thing we need to do is create an application. On the General page, we need to make sure that we have Automatically Detect Information about this application from installation files selected, and the file type is an MSI. The location, notice the path they give us. It's a UNC path. Well, if I'm going to point to those Office files, and it can only be done by pointing to a UNC path, we need to just pop over real quick and share those guys. So there's E, Office 2013, and I think I'll just stop right there. Let's share Office 2013. The default shared folder permissions are, of course, administrators are the owner, and an administrator would have read-write permissions. In a lab environment, it's fine to leave this set as is. In a production environment, you would always want to go with the least privilege security. So make sure that you've locked down your security after you're done with testing. Usually when you're testing and learning a new product, it's a good idea to keep the floodgates kind of open, but you need to have it all locked down and secured properly before you take it into production. And we'll leave it for administrators as the owner. When the folder is shared, click Done. Now back to our new application. So to input that UNC path, we'll do CM 2012 \, and that's always a good sign when you see your shares pop up. Then we need to add to this. So drilling down, we'll go to the x86 folder. Within that, we'll scroll down and go into the Pro Plus folder. And within that, we will choose the Pro Plus MSI. Then click Next. Once the information is imported, you'll see a great big green circle with a white X in the middle, or if things didn't work out as well, you'll see a great big red circle with a white X in the middle. We're looking good here, so I'm going to click Next. For the name, We'll leave Office Pro Plus 2013. You have space for comments, manufacturer, software version, optional reference information, administrative categories if you've created categories in Configuration Manager, specify the installation program, and this is showing it to run as an MSI exec, but Config Manager needs it to run as setup.exe. So for that installation program, I'll replace this with setup.exe. You could run installation program as a 32-bit process on a 64-bit client, but we're actually going to run this on a 32-bit client, so we don't need to worry about that. And then for the install behavior, we could have it install for system, for user, or for a resource like a device. We're going to keep it with install for system. Click Next. On the summary page, click Next. On the completion page, we get the Create Application Wizard completed successfully. So, click on that Close button. We've added our application. Now, it's listed here as an application, but notice down at the bottom of the page what we have. We have a summary about information on the application. We have deployment types and deployments. Let's go to Deployment Types. When the deployment type appears, we're going to right-click and go to Properties. On the Content tab. And we want to remove just that last little bit. On the Programs tab, we have it set to run setup.exe. And in the uninstall program, we're going to do the same thing. Let's remove those MSI exec commands. Paste in setup.exe and give it the uninstall switch. Over to the Detection Method tab. We want to make sure that the MSI product code was created. The User Experience tab. This shows us how the experience should be for the application actually running. So the installation behavior is set for install for system. Notice you have options. Logon requirement, whether or not a user is logged on, and again, you have options. Only when they are or they aren't. And installation program, do you want them to see anything? It could run maximized, normal, minimized, or hidden. We're going to stick with hidden. What's the amount of time we should allow it to run? And the estimated installation time, which, if the client was going to see this, a little pop-up box would show. And whatever we put in here, if I say it's going to be 60 minutes, then on the client machine, when they kick it off, or when the time is met that it's supposed to be kicked off for a scheduled deployment, the end user would be able to see that something's about to run, how long it'll be before it kicks off, and how long to expect it to run before it completes. So they know, yeah, maybe I should wait and launch this when I go to lunch today or when I leave for work this afternoon and then check it first thing in the morning. A lot of applications can be designed that way. And I say can be because the administrator has complete flexibility to set applications up to run any way they choose. And then the Requirements tab. On the Requirements, we're going to click Add. And for the category, we'll leave device. For condition, total physical memory. The rule type set to a value. Operator, greater than or equal to. And let's just give it 1024. So this product only gets installed on machines that have at least 1 gig of RAM. Click OK. You can put as many requirements as you'd like on this page. You could set up requirements so that only Windows 8 machines get this application, or only machines with a certain amount of RAM. There's a ton of variables you can add in here. For now, we're just going to leave it to total physical memory. Now that we've added Office to Configuration Manager, it's time to do a deployment. Now, if you're not familiar with what deployment is, in the past we used to call these advertisements. Advertisements don't exist any longer. In Config Manager 2012, they've changed that terminology to deployment. So we'll choose Deployment, and I'm going to choose to deploy. The software to be deployed is already listed for us. In the collection that we want to deploy it to, we can browse, and I'm going to choose. From the drop-down, we can select either user or device collections. We're going to go with devices, and all systems. So anything that is in the all systems collection will get the information that they're supposed to deploy and install Office 2013. If you would like to set up automatically distribute content for dependencies, we don't have any dependencies, but it won't hurt to leave that. If we add any dependencies later on, we won't have to come back and change that. We'll click Next. On the content destination, we'll click Add, Distribution Point, and our local server, the CM2012 machine, that's the only DP we have. So we'll select that one and then click OK. Now here's just a little tip for you. If you've already told an application which distribution points to go to, and you've set up all of them, or you have one like we do and we've already set it up, look what happens if you click on the Add Distribution Point again. There are no items to show because you've already added the one and only distribution point that you have. So don't be surprised if you run into that. I'm going to cancel there, and we'll choose Next. The action type, we'll choose Install. The purpose, if you make it available, then users can choose when they would like to install it. If you make it required, that's what we used to call mandatory, and that means at a specific date and time, this will kick off. And unless you're an administrator on that machine, there's nothing you can do about it. We're going to leave it set just to available for now. And click Next. Specify the schedule for this deployment. We're not actually setting it up to be a mandatory or a required application, so I just want this to be available as soon as we're done creating this. So let's pump this up to about 2:52 a.m. That should be good. And click Next. The user experience, user notifications should be displayed in the Software Center and only show notifications for computer restarts. Your other option is to display in Software Center and show all notifications. When the installation deadline is reached, you can allow certain activities to be performed outside of Config Manager's maintenance windows. We don't have maintenance windows set up, which is why these are not selectable. We have chosen to commit changes at deadline or during a maintenance window. Requires restarts. Click Next. And Configuration Manager can generate alerts when the application is deployed. Threshold for a failed deployment, you could set that up to create a deployment alert when the threshold is higher than 1 if you wanted. Or you can set it to any level you choose. And the last two options at the bottom of the page have to do with System Center Operations Manager. You can enable SCOM's maintenance mode, generate a SCOM alert when a software installation fails. We're going to leave this page alone. Click Next. On the summary page, if it all looks good, we'll click Next. And on the completion page, we'll close. Now it can take a few minutes for this to get out to your distribution points. So you want to make sure you give it enough time that that's actually out there. To check that, you can look at the content status. The content status is going to show you everything that's supposed to be on that one distribution point. So I want to look at one specific thing, and that's Office 2013. Notice that when you highlight any of these, are boot images we haven't done anything with yet, so they're grayed. They are not on the distribution point. But because we have green on our completion statistics for Office 2013, that has already been copied out. Package IDs have been assigned. Notice the package ID is GLB 00006. Office 2013 is now ready to deploy to our client machines. We just have to give it a few minutes to wait until the client finds out they have new software to install. On the Windows 8 Start page, click the Configuration Manager's client software called Software Center. This is where Config Manager offers its software that you've set up to be installed and available. Notice we have our Microsoft Office Professional Plus 2013. You could click Install or put a check mark in the box next to the left of it and choose Install Selected. And once Office has finished its installation, you'll know because the status will be set to Installed. We did have this set to install as a hidden application, so during the installation, you're not going to see anything. How do you know if the product actually got installed other than the status? Well, you can always close down Software Center, pop back over to that Start page, scoot on over to the right, that's where it puts your new toys, and notice we have InfoPath Designer, Filter, Outlook, and the rest of the gang is all there. So, our installation was successful. I hope you enjoyed learning the difference between applications and packages in Config Manager 2012 SP1, and you saw how simple it is to create an Office 2013 application, distribute and deploy Office. Waiting for it to come up on the client is probably going to be the most difficult step in all of this, but once your application does appear on the client's Software Center, all you need to do is run it. I hope you've enjoyed learning about all the various settings, switches that make this so flexible and gives you, the administrator, so much control over your Office 2013 deployments. I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.